بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب زدني علما.
So let's try to understand how it works with a simple example here. So as you can see, there is one diagram which I'm going to show you with one example here. So we have two different sites. Let's say we have a site 1 and the site 2 on the left side and the right side. So in each site, we have added one endpoint identifier or the host. So we have the host of 192.168.1.101, that is host 1, let's say. And then we have another host which is on the site 2, which is 2.102. We call it as H2 or the host 2. Now we'll try to see how the communication process goes on. And they point to the device. Now this is the device, which is my router. And that's going to be my routing locator here. And the address, you can see the routing locator is 123.1 here, 123.2 here. So maybe in the transit, you may have multiple other routers also again. So it can be directly connected, or maybe in the transit, you have multiple routers over there. So now again, there is another space, whatever the space here, we call it as non-Lisp. Non-Lisp is nothing but the network which is not enabled with Lisp. So again, we'll see as we move on in the later on sections when we get into the components. We'll try to see how the traffic forwarding happens between the Lisp site and the Lisp site, and between Lisp and non-Lisp options. So we'll see that as we move on. Okay. So now let's say we have a host 1 here. Now this particular host 1 wants to send the traffic to host 2. So the traffic will be sent because the host 1 doesn't have anything to do with the Lisp. So the host 1 is just going to simply say that, okay, I want to go to this particular destination, which means I'm going to simply forward the packet to the gateway. So the end devices, endpoint identifiers has nothing to do with the Lisp. So they basically just route the packet to the gateway according to the network ID. In my case, the network ID is on a different subnet, so it goes to the gateway, that is router 1. Now, once the packet reaches the router 1, now the router 1 is going to receive the IP packet, and it's going to ask the Lisp mapping system. So now there will be a database maintained by the mapping server. We'll talk about this. There will be a mapping server somewhere here. We'll talk about this a little bit on the later on, mapping server and the map resolver. There are a few terminologies we'll see a little bit later on. I'm not getting into that right now. So there will be a router or the mapping server which is going to maintain the database, saying that, okay, to reach out this particular endpoint identifier, this is the routing locator you have to go. So it's going to send out a request and get the information where exactly the host 2 and what is the routing locator. So it says that, okay, you want to go to this 2.102. Now to reach out this particular 2.102, so you have to reach out to 123.2. So I'm just writing the last two portions. This is my route locator, and this is the host 2. So this is the host 2 IP address, and this is the routing locator 2, let's say, the second router, the router 2. So there will be a mapping database, and that database or the mapping system is going to reply the mapping information, which router 1 learns from the mapping server based on some request. And once it knows that, okay, to send out the packet to this particular destination, I have to send it to the routing locator 123.2, that is routing locator 2. So now the router is going to encapsulate the packet. Again, the encapsulation also will see the encapsulate the packet inside the Lisp. And then it's going to transmit the packet, which contains the information about the source address, destination address, and then the source IP, destination IP. This is going to be a Lisp information. And then it's going to transmit the packet to the router 2. Now, once the router 2 receives the encapsulated packet, it's going to decapsulate it, and it's going to forward it to the host 2. Just like a normal VPN kind of options. But at the end here, you can see there is some kind of encapsulation and decapsulation happens, because there will be a Lisp packet will be encapsulated with the routing locator address, and that routing locator address is going to identify where exactly that particular destination is. and based on that, it reaches the destination. So this is one simple and the basic example of how exactly the Lisp is going to work. Again, as we move on, we'll try to see some more variations in this, a little bit more in detail as we discuss some of the different components in different scenarios. But as of now, this is something you need to understand initially.